The United States government has recruited a group of criminals to form a team in order to execute a job that's basically a suicide mission in exchange for clemency. But enough about Suicide Squad. We're here to talk about the Dirty Dozen. Welcome to Debt to Cinema. I'm Stephen Montmanex.
And I'm Brian Gillis. Like most people, we love going to the theater and catching the latest releases. However, it can sadly put a big dent in your wallet.
Fortunately, living in the digital age makes the viewing possibilities endless from the comforts of home.
Many of these films that you can see right from your couch, we're ashamed to say we miss, despite labeling ourselves cinephiles.
So join us as one or both of us cross off a title from our list of shame.
It can be an all-time essential classic,
or an underrated piece of cinema that's worth giving a shot.
Hell, it might just be some trashy film we want the other's opinion on. So sit tight and join us as we pay off our debts, $1 at a time.
Major Reisman, you are ordered by Allied command to select 12 general prisoners, convicted by courts-martial and sentenced to be executed or serve lengthy prison terms for murder, rape, robbery, and other crimes of violence. And you will deliver them secretly behind enemy lines in France to undertake a mission of sabotage that could change the course of the war. The 12 men will be known as the Dirty Dozen.
So much crazy stuff about this movie, not just the movie itself, but a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes that I'm learning about now, and I've seen this movie twice. I mean, it's just more and more insane the more that I learn about this.
Well, I'm learning everything because this is my first time seeing it. And on top of that, it's the first time seeing a film starring most of these people. Obviously, Donald Sutherland is in a lot. I love Ernest Borgnine and Marty and a couple other things I've seen him in.
That's the thing, is like, I still can't fathom that General Marty is in this movie.
Right?
I know, it's like he's deadly serious, and yet there's still a lot of moments where he gets to inject a lot of humor, a lot of it which is improvised too. It's just nice little touches.
But this is the first time
rest
I've
in
seen
peace.
like Lee Marvin, Charles Bronson, really. Like, I saw him in the the Magnificent Seven, but I don't even remember what role he plays in that. Sure, I saw John Cassavetes last year in Rosemary's Baby, but he really stands out here. Jim Brown, just about everyone besides like Donald Sutherland and Ernest Borgnine. Like, I'd never seen them before. They're
and
all
just
new
going
to
back
me.
to Jim Brown, I mean, he was in the NFL.
Yeah, he played for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, he retired or quit. I don't know however you want to put it, but because of this movie, because they were going over schedule and they demanded that he go back to camp. I mean, like, there is drama for almost everybody in this movie. You know, Lee Marvin, as badass as he is, was just a total piece of shit on set, apparently, and he would go back and forth between complimenting this movie and these guys and just shitting on it, you know, saying, like, that this movie was not authentic at all, which, you know, it isn't. I mean, this is, like, about as accurate as Inglourious Bastards is, which, of course,
it's funny because
that movie
reminds me a lot of
Inglourious
Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah, I mean, the Bastards are the Dirty Dozen, except I guess they're not necessarily as horrible as when they start out, but it's clearly lifted from that, the idea of it. I mean, yeah, you know, there's the obvious Suicide Squad tie-in, which we started this out with, but I mean, it's interesting to me watching it now. Like, I was able to think about this more and more because I talked about, I think it was back during Thanksgiving on 2 Cents, about my first experience seeing this movie, and it was at the New Bev with the sold-out crowd, and I mean, I found myself now much more disturbed by it because I didn't have that audience to cheer along with what was happening. You know, like, I didn't like the movie any less, but it really just dawned on me how many fucking war crimes they commit in this movie, and yet they're still the heroes at the end of the day.
I don't know about that. I mean, it's kind of an unknown thing that happens. Like, I know there's some kind of historical accuracy here. It's a novel that was adapted, but did they really make a big impact? It's not like the Bastards killing Hitler or anything.
Well,
this
no,
is
but
just,
I mean,
let's
this was
cause some havoc and get
as
rid
far
of
as
their
violence, though. Like, this movie, it was a huge deal at the time, and I learned about this through Wikipedia. That, you know, you look at the page just regarding the criticism alone, like, the
So
build up
they're
to it
Nazis.
is enough where it's like, oh my god, that is actually brutal. It's not like Inglourious Bastards theater burning horrific or anything, but still, I mean, it is pretty intense, especially the first time that I saw this. And yeah, like, but I'm not saying that like it's a bad thing. It's just, it is interesting that when something can be made that is just so well written and so entertaining, and you have an ensemble that is just so much fun to watch, that they can get away with doing what, when you think about it afterwards, are pretty horrific things, and that make them no better than the Nazis at the end of the day. It's just, I find that kind of fascinating.
No, it's war. There
It
is
is.
no
I mean, it doesn't show you the
there's no
pretty side
black
of
and
war
white
at
in
all.
war. Yeah, it's all gray area, but I disagree. I don't think that the violence here is realized. I mean, obviously this movie's
Well, no,
50 years
I'm not
old.
talking about
They have
realized. I'm
different
saying that it presents it like in a heroic way, and it's just that's interesting to
sort
me.
of,
Yeah,
except they all die during that sequence for the most part. Like the only people that survive are the commanding officers. You
yeah,
get Lee Majors and you get Charles Bronson. Everyone else is gone.
yeah.
And I didn't really even miss that they were gone. Like sure, when Donald Sutherland dies, like that one is the most emotional out of everyone, only because he's the doofus. Like he does get his moment to shine with that really cool general sequence,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
he's like the jackass that everyone kind of loves for some silly reason, or more so it's like, hey, that's Kiefer Sutherland's dad, or that's the bad guy from the Hunger Games. Like someone has a reason to appreciate him now.
Hey,
Still
well,
have to see
funny
Don't Look
tidbit
Now.
though, he got the role of MASH just because of that one scene, and it wasn't supposed to be him on set, but then they just decided at the last minute to make it Donald Sutherland, so his career really went up because of this movie. Most of them did.
See, I haven't seen MASH. Like I said, I haven't seen anything that most of these people are in. But going back to the violence, I think that not only do you not see like the real bloody side of everything that's going on, like you said, but it romanticized these kind of missions, especially at the end. The way that, like you said, like you're cheering with these men, they get away with everything. Like Telly Savalas, like fucking
Oh
does
my
like he's the
god.
worst guy in this movie. Like does
Seriously.
some despicable things. It's like, oh, he's Blofeld, ha ha ha. Well, I don't know. I don't know if I liked it. I think I need to see
Really?
this again
Oh man.
sometime in the future. I loved Lee Marvin in this. He's amazing. John Cassavetes. There's a lot of great characters, and it's more so the actors playing them. But it's like I said, a lot of them they don't get their due. They're not fleshed out when they're dead. I don't really care. Like Franco, for instance, as much as I loved him, I didn't really get a good shot of him on camera when he died. Or
No, that
Maggot,
was
as much as
very
I
quick. That was
disliked
like
him.
there was 30 seconds left in the movie right after that happened.
Yeah. I never at any point really related to these guys. Like there's certain moments that are awesome. It's like when they band together over not shaving, when they're doing the war games, like you have lots of moments where you really start caring for these guys, but it's like missing the compassion. I don't think that I don't know if there's a way to justify that because of the length. It's 2.5 hours. It's like kind of three movies in one. There's a big story here. It's like the first successful World War II comedy, I would say.
A comedy's a word you can throw in there, but I mean that's one of those things where I just don't know how to classify this movie. Like much in the same way with Inglorious Bastards, it's like what do you call
They're both
that
war
movie as
comedies.
far as genre? Like you can throw in war movie, but really what is it? Because it's a lot of things in one. Like
I
it's
think they're
definitely
both.
funny, but there is very tense and like pretty messed up moments in there that you can't help but react to. You're not laughing the whole way through. There is definitely some stuff in there that kind of boils your blood a little bit.
You're laughing most of the way through this though, with just the song itself, the fact that they made a spin-off movie several years later, how just like the term "dirty dozens" kind of it has almost like it's a catchphrase now. Which, by the way, I did not know that it meant what it did here. It wasn't like I didn't know that the military police guy was gonna give them the name because they didn't bathe for so long. I thought it was because they were doing dirty, despicable things, and then they got caught and put into this regiment. Um,
I
but
mean,
I think that's what I
I
miss.
think that's the best way to like. That's probably how the title came up. I don't know. Like even the first time that I saw this movie, I forgot that that's exactly how they were given that name. I mean, because it's not exactly the most memorable scenario. It's just one of those things that happens. And it's like, oh, cue the name of the movie where this is. It's that useless thing that I guess is there. Is what I'm trying to say, but it is not, it's not the most memorable reason, but it's still a good title at the end of the day. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I just think this movie's a little too dated for its subject matter. Like, perhaps if they vilified these men before the movie started, like, yeah, cool, I get it. They're already in prison. I'm sure Suicide Squad's gonna do a similar thing, but I wanted some backstory. Like, maybe show Franco literally kill that shop owner and take the money. Or have, whatever you don't even really know what the rest of the guys do. What, Charles Bronson shoot the guy who's running away with the
Yeah,
supplies?
he shot
Like,
yeah,
let
a guy
me
that ran away.
yeah, let me get one of these moments. Let me see them before they become the bad guy, before they get thrown into jail. Because, like, the hanging sequence, the way this movie begins, it didn't set anything up for me. I didn't care about that guy. It didn't seem like
No.
Lee Marvin was really interested.
What that opening did is that it set up Lee Marvin, and it just set up that he really, really hated being there. You know, apart from him just
Yeah.
saying it, and yeah, he was totally just given the short end of the stick there. Although it's weird because I do think maybe now that I don't have many complaints about this movie, but yeah, I do think it's weird that Lee Marvin seems like a great leader, but I could see that he's not necessarily obedient, but they kind of act like he's incompetent throughout, and that's the sense that I get.
I don't see it that way.
Hmm?
He definitely seems like a great leader, and
Yeah.
you can tell his company really starts liking him towards the end. But he's just, he's like the badass leading the group of badasses. Like,
Well, see,
what
I mean,
else do you
that's the
need?
thing, though. Like, you want more out of these guys in the beginning. I think, first of all, you can't do that because that's probably the worst thing that could happen is that you sympathize with these guys at the beginning. You know, they have to feel untrainable at first, and you have to see them kind of grow into a unit. If you saw that, like, who they were at the beginning, I mean, well, that probably would not have passed the censor's board, but if you saw someone killing someone, you would have a hard time liking them throughout the rest of the movie. So I don't think that could happen for story reasons, but also, I don't expect this movie to be too deep or take it seriously as a war film, even though it's supposed to be an anti-war film in the time when the country was in Vietnam. I mean, to me, this is just like a testosterone-fueled flick, just about the ultimate group of badasses, much in the same way that Predator is in some way. It's that kind of machismo. And I mean, seeing that, I saw this at the New Bev in the theater with that perfect crowd that could enjoy it that way. So that's pretty much the impression that I'm taking away of this movie the first time I saw it, and that's what's sticking with me now when I'm rewatching it a second time.
Perhaps it's what they could get away with in the 80s, or just how much filmmaking progressed, because the color here is great. It was like, it's not Panavision, it's not deluxe, it's like Metro color or something, but it looks great. Like, the skin tone is gorgeous when the fire's going off later on. Like, it's a real pretty movie. It's shot really well. I like a lot of the camera shots. But it doesn't seem like that badass movie to me. Like, it seems like a kind of goofy comedy with some semi-serious characters doing not such great things in the name of our country. But I never at one point, like, maybe it's because I saw it alone with my cat, but I was never going, yeah, fuck yeah, woo! Like, the closest I got to that is, like, when Lee Marvin saves his company from, what's his name, the flight school guy, or, just like when they're having fun during the war games, like, there's certain moments
Yeah.
you're like, oh, that was cool, but I'm not like, fuck yeah, let me
but
get
that's
like
mainly
let me
at
get a
the end.
tattoo of that guy.
I mean, those fuck yeah moments, though, for me, they mainly come from Lee Marvin. It's just that confidence in everything that he says, or just when he's, like, ordering for a rope to be tugged and he points a machine gun at it and just shoots. He's like, pulls the trigger like it's nothing. And I mean, there's fuck yeah moments like that, like, it's not necessarily just in action, but it's even just in things that he says, like, just the writing here, which is so good, like, right away, just Lee Marvin's reaction to things, like, I mean, I think one of my favorite lines in this movie, it's very simple, it's not that great of a line, but, it's when, he asks Ernest Borgnine if Colonel Reed is in any way involved in the operation, then he asks him back, well, what if he is? Well, I'd be very unhappy about it. It's just the way that he delivers it, and, like, so many other lines in this movie that I'm just like, just with such confidence that he doesn't give a shit if he's going to get any backlash from any of his superiors, because he's just going to get chewed out anyway, and I freaking love that.
It's funny because Lee Marvin in this movie, you can tell that Brad Pitt channeled some of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That characterization, and then Joel Kinnaman's character in Suicide Squad, Rick Flag, is basically the same thing. He's like the almost civilian who is able to, or not civilian, but the leader for the ragtag group. But it's then again, Suicide Squad, Viola Davis's character is Amanda Waller. Is going to be like even more so that. I guess you could call her the Ernest Borgnine character,
Maybe,
where
although
she's
she seems
the
far
real
more
one.
serious. Then again, we
Yeah,
haven't seen it yet, so who knows?
Yeah, she's the real one behind the scenes, but you don't know it. This movie was pretty cool. It's just I saw it in passing, really, like a couple of months ago. I saw like a scene or two, so I was already kind of familiar with the tone, and it rubs me the wrong way a little bit. I think because it's never really laugh out loud funny. it's never really like a crowd pleasing action movie. It's
See,
never one of its many shades in total. But when you put it all together, it's great at being all of those. I had a similar complaint about something we saw for this show not too long ago, where it's like I can't remember what it is currently, but it's great at what it is. It's great at being an ensemble war comedy. It's not great at being one thing specifically, but it's great as what it is, like being a mishmash or being like a petri dish or an appetizer platter, for being all of those things at once. It's really great, and it's a cool balancing act. But for how much I committed to this, and I was never bored, I never looked at the clock wondering how much longer it was going to run, but for how much I was committed, I didn't get to walk away with much. I didn't think about something a certain way. I wasn't going, oh, fuck war. I wasn't thinking like, oh yeah, rapists should definitely have girls fall for them and stab them in the stomach. Like, I didn't have any immediate impact on me. Like, sure, I understand why people love it. I understand why it's on best ever lists. Like, I'm sure it's on Edgar Wright's 1000 movies list on Mubi. But like, to me, it was just like another. Like, I haven't seen a lot of these, but it was just like, oh, it's like a funnier version of Bridge Over the Kauai, like, or Bridge Over the River Kauai, rather. It's like, that's more prestigious. That's a much more serious movie.
Yeah.
Has more acclaimed actors in it, but it's kind of like the same thing. It's like, well, it's not really a war movie because it's so dated, but then again, like, it's also a snapshot of history because they wouldn't make a movie like this now.
No,
Like,
I mean, it's still insane, like, when you think about it later, that they made a movie like this then. And I mean,
Yeah.
like, this was a crowd pleaser for me, because that's how I saw it for the first time,
Yeah,
and the
you saw
crowd
it with
was
the crowd,
really,
yeah.
really into it. Yeah, like, a sold-out crowd that was laughing, and I kind of feel like such a dick for making you watch this for the first time, because I'm pretty sure I said it, and there will be a clip of that episode at the very end of this show, right at the tail end after the outro, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, I said, hey, if you can see this with a crowd, especially at the New Bev, if you get the opportunity, go, because it's really something. And the expectations were not, I didn't have a standard of how I wanted this movie to be, but I was pretty surprised at just the level of things that happened for a movie that came out of the 60s in terms of violence in this movie. I mean, just the fact that they would start dousing a bunch of people with gasoline, especially some that are innocent, or just Telly Savalas' character and how insane he is, and like just this misogynistic, like, ultra-religious piece of shit human being. Like, the fact that this is in a movie that's in the 60s, even though it's the late 60s, but it's one of those things that's pushing the film rating code at that point. But yeah, just really seeing this with a crowd, like, that's an experience I'm going to remember. And that was something I was definitely thinking of here, of like, yeah, it's never, ever, ever going to be the same. It's not as fun watching this at home on a tablet, but there's still plenty of great writing there and great situations and, like, really, really fun characters that all get their moments in this ensemble. And, like,
most
it's
of
still
them, like, the Dirty Dozen isn't actually a dozen guys. It's like 8. Like, 4 of them die and you don't even care. You're like, oh yeah,
funny
what's
enough,
your
one of
name?
them,
Who cares?
I can't remember I'm blanking out on the character's name. The guy that dies in the jump, he dies in the movie just because the actor couldn't keep filming.
They probably killed him just to raise the stakes. They're like, one of you is already dead. Keep on going. And then everyone that dies after, they're like, okay, cool. Like, the guy who gets his leg stuck in the roof. Okay. Like, I wish I cared more for these guys. We've talked about Suicide Squad, Inglourious Bastards, but I'd kind of want to see an actual remake of this. Like, full on, maybe set it during the Gulf War, set it during World War II, set it whenever, but make these guys monsters. Like, make them villains. Give me a reason to not like them, but then be impressed when they come together for like the greater good.
Well, that's going to be Suicide Squad. Granted, a
we
different version
we
of that.
assume
But
that's going to be Suicide Squad. But yeah,
how else can you assume it? I mean, these are people that are still supposed to be villains, I assume, by the time Justice League rolls around. So that's going to be an interesting one as far as how that works out. Like,
I think.
I mean, because I wouldn't even call them protagonists, but even in this movie, I don't know. Like, I can't even necessarily say that any of these guys are good. It's you can look at it more as like a war movie in the sense of, hey, war is not easy, and you have to fight it kind of dirty, but at the end of the day, no one is necessarily good.
Like I said, Charles Bronson's character, at no point in this movie did I think he was bad. It's like, especially when he tells his backstory about, oh, like we were being bombarded, this one guy took the medical supplies and ran off, and I shot him. And then Lee Marvin's like, well, there you go. You shouldn't have been no one should have seen you, or whatever.
Again, another great line delivered by Lee Marvin.
And then they're like
very
best
simple,
friends.
but the way that he says it.
They're best friends at the end of the movie when they're in the hospital together. Like, oh, yeah, let's plan the next mission. Like, fuck the generals or whatever. I never really, like, Telly Savalas, yes. Like, he's a despicable guy in this movie from beginning to end. He's always saying fucked up things. He's always doing messed up things. Like, he's definitely the villain of the group. That's why he ruins the plan.
I
mean, it all goes to shit because of him.
Knowing what was going to happen, too, like, in this viewing, I was just, I saw it more and more, and I was just like, wait, how did you not see him coming? Like, I know there's that scene where you're talking about how unstable he is, but...
yeah.
How do you not see this coming? Like it's
like when they make him sit in the watchtower where everyone else gets laid. Like that's pretty fucked up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like that he's not going to be cool with it. But yeah, it's cool because I did see a bit of foreshadowing here, and I actually, what's cool about watching this on a tablet on Amazon Instant, even though I didn't have internet and I had it downloaded, is that you can still have little trivia notes that are linked to IMDb come up. Yeah, and like, I just happened to see one that had to deal with that dinner table scene, and Telly Savalas is in the Judas position in that Last Supper, modeled after the painting. And even as they're talking and reciting and going over the plan, he's not reciting all the lines with them. And some of the shots, he's just sitting there quiet. And like, I just thought like, wow, that's a really fucking cool way to set that up.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like I didn't look at the trivia for this on IMDb or anything. I was just trying to have
it
a
came
conversation
up from time
with.
To time,
no, yeah, I'm sure of that. I was just trying to have a more personal conversation without doing it much research. But you have the one villain of the group, and the rest of them just seem like guys that got a bad break. Like, sure, I killed this one guy, stole his money, or I stole this car, or I was put in jail for being black or whatever. Like they all have their little story, and none of them really I went, oh yeah, they're bad, like they deserve to be in here. Like none of them at any point besides Telly Savalas did I go oh yeah, I understand why these guys are going to be hung or be in jail for 30 years. And if I had, if it had a Suicide Squad angle to it, where it's like, oh, these are definitely bad people, I'm sure the power of me rooting for them would have been a much more accomplished feat. Like, if I did start caring for these people that I hated to begin with.
Well, there were like 4 of them that had death sentences, and the rest were spending like 20 to 30 years either behind bars or in labor camps. But Franco, for example, John Cassavetes' character...
yeah, he killed a dude.
Yeah, that dude's a loose cannon. Like, he doesn't... I'm not going to say bad guy on the same level of Telly Savalas, but definitely not a good guy. Not someone that you want to have just walking around. Like,
then again, he's also the guy in the group that brought everyone together and is like fully gung-ho for the plan, and a lot wouldn't have happened without him.
Not intentionally. Like, you have to keep in mind... he was kind of forced into that position in the group. He was the guy that was going to run off and just leave them all behind to get hung. Yeah. And until they pulled him back, he didn't really adapt to that until later and just make the best of the situation. So, yeah, he ended up being the guy that brought them together. But that was, if he got away, he couldn't have given less of a shit. He just made the best out of the situation that he was stuck in because he was outnumbered.
What I'm trying to say is once he becomes a team player, like they all do, he's like the number one guy on the team. Like he is their all-star. Yeah. He's the one that can rob the vehicle or like hijack the vehicles. He's the one that gets away with things. He's the one that has like that real boyish smile. And we haven't talked about him yet, but Posey, that guy needed way more screen time. That knife fight wasn't enough.
So that was such a great scene, though.
It's like the only scene he gets, which is still more than like 4 or 5 of the other guys. But even still, like just his build, his stature, how cool his beard looks, like a lot about him. Like he's like one of the first guys dancing during the hookup scene. I wish that there was more camaraderie. That if you got 12 guys, that means there's at least 6 different conversations that could happen at once.
See, though, I think that's a compliment to the movie because there are a lot of moments where everyone does kind of get theirs, and the fact that it leaves you wanting more, like, I think that's a good thing because almost every single moment that they have to me is memorable, honestly.
But they're like spotlight moments. It's a moment where a singular person gets, their due.
Yeah.
I wanted more tandems, like when you have Jim Brown and Charles Bronson kicking the shit out of John Cassavetes for trying to run away, or like there's a lot of moments when they're awesome together, like obviously the siege at the end, but when they're the war games, for instance, or when they're overtaking the group and kicking all their asses and taking their guns back, like you have these moments where they shine bright together. But I wanted more like duos, like just one guy standing next to another guy and they're talking about how much it sucks, or talking about how much they like Lee Marvin, or lots of different things. Like it left me wanting more. Like you said, that is a good thing. It means that it left an impression. But for something of this caliber, the fact that it had a spin-off movie and the name became like synonymous with a certain thing, and that most of these people, either they were already successful or they went on to become wildly successful, I was expecting a little more. Like I can understand, 1967, not a lot was out like this. Like, okay, the Batman movie was coming out like the same year. That movie's pretty kick-ass.
If you really want to bring that up.
That movie's badass.
No, I'm just saying,
still,
like, come on. That's a weird one to compare to this, especially when you talk about Batman movies that are as good as this one.
It is a great
for different
ensemble.
Movies.
It is very colorful, and it is kind of a war movie. It's all of Gotham going against Batman or Robin.
The movie with the exploding shark.
Sometimes you just can't get rid of a bomb, okay? Everyone knows you need shark repellent on your bat utility belt. So,
moving on.
I just think it came up because I can't think of many movies from that time frame. But I understand that at the time of this release, it was kind of groundbreaking. There's nothing else like it. It's totally like revered for those kind of reasons. But and that's what's weird about cinema of this age. You can't compare it to modern cinema. You just can't. Not just in the way that it's shot, or the way stories unfold, or dialogue happens, or plot devices. It's very singular. Like the 60s is very separate from the 40s and before, and like the mid 70s and later. Like it is its own bubble of cinema. Like everything around that time, for the most part, is pretty happy-go-lucky. Like it looks a certain way. The people talk a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Noir was already gone. Musicals didn't really exist anymore. It was like its own kind of histrionic. Like it's a blockbuster kinda, but they're just talking. Like this could have been an Academy Award winner for all I know. I know it wasn't, but I'm sure it's not far removed. What won in '66? A Man for All Seasons, I believe. Like I haven't seen that,
sure.
But I know that this film has to be of a similar caliber. That all those movies are kind of similar. '68 was In the Heat of the Night. Okay, so like that movie is kind of similar to this too. Like that isn't a comedy per se, but yet it's funny and it has a mystery, but it is not a mystery. It's a thriller, but it's also a buddy cop movie. Like it's a lot of things at once, in the same way that this is a lot of things at once. Like it's not pigeonholed to one genre's convention. Maybe that's because the world is becoming more of an international thing. We were no longer like in our own spheres of culture and trying to adapt and react and try to work with everything else that's going on. I don't know where I'm going here.
I think I see where you're going. I had a point to respond to, and then I let you keep moving. But I mean, like this is a point where. I can't remember the official date that New Hollywood started. I always just
right
say,
around
hey,
here.
It's 70 or no, Easy Rider was
like 68, 69.
But still, this is like a big movie though too at the time. So it's still for like a big, it basically kind of is a blockbuster.
It's basically
and
a
yet,
blockbuster.
it is an epic, and I love that. And it it's one of those like long movies that it moves at a really good pace. It never bores you, and then when it's over, like you really do feel like you went somewhere, especially when you're in the theater setting. I mean, I know this is different for you, but like I can see this working like for a modern audience, and it did, and it really entertained the hell out of us. But then again, maybe another way of likening it is that I went and saw this at the New Beverly, and we had 35 millimeter trailers starting beforehand, and we had those old fashioned ads and everything. And so that's a place also where everyone is respectful and turns off their cell phone, and that's a historic theater. So, you get that period setting, and it's almost like you literally are traveling back in time when you just sit down in that room. And so I don't know, maybe part of it is that you enter that state of mind and just whatever your modern movie watching sensibilities are, they just go away. Like you feel like you're in a different time.
Yeah,
I don't know.
when I
Maybe that
saw,
could be it, because it's very different watching this on a
no,
tablet. That is for sure.
that's definitely a great point. I mean, when I saw how the West was won in Cinerama at the
Yeah,
Cinerama Dome,
like
it was
that's
the
the
same kind
only
of
way I
thing.
will ever see it.
Yeah, everyone's phone was off. Everyone was there for the same reason. Seeing a movie in a specific format in the theater it was meant to be shown in. If I saw that at home, I probably would hate it. But because of the spectacle on hand, the fact that everyone was there, it was such a interesting, like kind of like you said, like it's like a time machine almost. It gave it a certain appeal that I don't think you could mimic at home in the same way that I had this experience with a movie that you got to see with a crowd. Because I've heard multiple people say how much they love this movie,
I'm one
and
of them.
I can see why. It's a fun movie. It's enticing. There's some cool action in it towards the end. A lot of the production is kick-ass, especially like those Nazi cars towards the end.
Oh yeah.
But I've seen movies that are similar that do it better, that I can understand its impact on those later works like Inglourious Basterds, but Inglourious Basterds does it so much better that it's kind of like, well, this was the stepping stone to a masterpiece. Like it had all the right pieces, it just wasn't assembled exactly the way that I would have done it. And I think Suicide Squad is going to be just another perfect example of that. It's like, wait, this is kind of like the same movie, but it's not. Like it's so miles apart.
I mean, my worry with Suicide Squad is my worry with anything that's comic book related nowadays is that hopefully it's not bloated. But that's we'll see where that goes. As far as Inglourious Basterds, I had a similar midnight movie experience the first time I saw that, but it's still very different from this movie to me. I love both of them just as much. I really don't want to revert back to that experience at the New Beverly as if like that's the end all be all of like why I love this movie, but I do think like as an experience to watching it for the first time, yes, that definitely augmented my viewing experience. But even if I'm watching this on a tablet, I still love this movie. I love the writing. I love these characters. I love Lee Marvin just being a smartass, and it's really just that fun, like machismo movie that I can watch just for entertainment. I don't have to think too deeply on it. I mean, yeah, you can say that this is an anti-war film, absolutely, but I've seen so many of those that I don't need to think about the same point over and over and over again. Like I understand it well enough now. That's not why I love this movie. It's a lot like Inglourious Basterds, where you have these very, very interesting characters that are very well written. Like Lee Marvin has just as many interesting things to say as Hans Landa to me, although Hans Landa is a far more unique character. But it's really, it's like comparing apples and oranges. But like I just love seeing like these characters very much in the same way, and the situations are completely different, yet they're definitely very similar things as far as what's in there. That's what I'm trying to say.
I think there's a lot to love here, but I just don't love it yet. And this could be something that grows on me, because I'm sure as I age, I'll have greater appreciation for movies that are older. I just, generally speaking, I like movies that are snappier, that really grab my attention with a specific reason. And I mean, that's not necessarily the case always. I mean, the Before trilogy is one of my favorites in cinema, and those move very, very slow. And I think the difference here is that it's like you said, like this is an epic, it's a blockbuster, there's a lot going on at once, there's a journey, all these characters are there, and for how much is here, I wish there was more, and not necessarily the good way. Like I wanted to be wowed or woed, and I was just like, it was more of a, that was good. It's a great iconic movie. It's just I can't buy it for $1. Like it would be not like someone if it was Christmas and someone bought this for me, I'd be like, oh, that's a great present. Like thanks, I'll probably watch this again. And if to bring our story that we always do, like if I was at the 7-Eleven and for some fucking reason this was in the dollar bin, then yeah, I would probably buy it for $1. But to put it up there, like okay, one of the only movies we've both bought in the recent past was Swiss Army Man.
Mm-hmm.
The impact that had on me is not comparable to the impact this one had on me, because there was no impact here. Like I said, I didn't walk away with anything. My worldview wasn't shifted. I didn't have a greater appreciation for these actors. Like, yes, a lot of them I saw for the first time, and now I want to see more that they're in. But I wasn't. It's not like my diary has a journal entry for last night where I went, first time I saw this movie, oh my god.
Not every single movie is necessarily supposed to impact you in a way that resonates with you in your personal life, I feel. Like, I mean, you brought up Swiss Army Man and the Before trilogy. That is something that I feel like, we specifically can identify with. Dirty Dozen, I've never been in the fucking army. I wasn't alive during World War II, and these are very colorful characters that are, it's a fun movie, and it's written in a way that's fun. Like, I'm not necessarily relating to any of them, but they're a fun bunch to watch, and it's entertaining, and I really like how these situations are constructed and how they play out, and it's a lot of fun. It's a different way of watching it, and like, yeah, it is entertainment at the end of the day, but I've had a blast with it, and I thought it was very, very well constructed. And here's the part where I go on about how I had a great experience watching it 9 months ago, and I'm not going to do that because I've given you so much of that, and you're going to have even more to listen to at the end of this episode. But yes, I would absolutely buy this for $1.
Thanks for listening. We hope it's been a pleasure. If you like this show and you want to hear more of our wonderful voices on a weekly basis, check out 2 Cents, a recap of what's happened in film, TV, and tech news.
We're also on the titular Dollar Review Show, a spoiler-free critique of new releases or anything we've discovered on our own, whether that be TV, music, etc.
You can find all of our content at dollarreviews.net. Follow us on Twitter or like us on Facebook at Dollar Reviews.
And we're also on Google Play Music, iTunes, Pocket Cast, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, just about anywhere on the internet with hours of content available to you for free. But for those of you that feel that the show is worth your dollar, you can send us a donation at patreon.com/dollarreviews. Contributions not only earn our undying love, but they also make it possible for us to improve our recording equipment and to give you the highest quality episodes possible. But more importantly, they'd be helping us acquire the content to review. Trips to the multiplex are expensive, and the more donations we receive, the more films we can review for your listening pleasure.
If you listen somewhere we're currently not available, you'd like to contribute some talking points, send a Death to Cinema request, or if you just want to laugh at us, you can do so by reaching out to us on social media or send an email to brian@dollarreviews.net.
Or you can email me as well, steve@dollarreviews.net.
You can follow me personally on Twitter at Brian Gillis, that's BRYONGILLIS, and now you know how to spell the email too, and also under the same name on the Loveviews site Letterboxd, which acts as my film diary, where I rate films that I'm watching, write the occasional review, and even sometimes compile lists.
You can also find me on Twitter at S_MTX, and also follow my film diary at Letterboxd under the same name, where I log everything I watch, and sometimes write brief reviews.
That's it for this week. Until next time, keep the change.
Last thing that I did see, the main
the reason
draw
you went
for
there,
me, was to see The Dirty Dozen for the first time.
which was like 3.5 hours, right?
Honestly, first off, that is not an issue because every second of this movie was entertaining. I was into it. It never, ever fucking dragged. I mean, just let's get this out of the way. I fucking loved this movie. Like it was so much fun. That like the audience, it was full. Everyone, there was so many people seeing it for the first time there, and we were all having fun with it. This is basically, I knew nothing about this movie. I didn't read a synopsis. I just knew it was The Dirty Dozen, and it's considered to be one of the greatest films of all time. It's something that you got to see. And so right away, when I hear what it's going to be about, like, do you know what this is about?
It's like a super squad, right?
Yeah, it's basically, it's Suicide Squad set in World War II. Where they just take a bunch of military prisoners that are either sentenced to hang or to do very long jail time, and they just put them all together, and they're basically a team that's going to be sent out to do these missions. And
of course, it's
most
an all-star cast.
Yeah, and most of the movie is just the stuff of training them and getting them in shape, and it's really one big mission in the end that you get out of it. But oh my god, that third act, it's so fucking tense. It's so much fucking fun. Like I loved it. I had a great time
I know it's on
seeing it. Like,
TCM all the time, like at least
oh
two or three
man,
times a year.
yeah, I would absolutely buy this for $1. You know, it's I don't know. I don't want to. Every time I see something like great for the first time that I love, I don't want to talk about it too much. I just wanted to like say like, yeah, you gotta see it like at some point. Honestly though, it's tough to say that because I had such a great experience watching it with a crowd, and that's something that not a lot of people are going to get. It's also though, I guess just interestingly enough, the print that I got, not that great either. Everything was very, very sharp. Like, you know, the projectionist did a great job. It was in focus, but the color itself was faded and it had mostly a sepia tone throughout. But, you know, what's funny about it, yeah, and also, like, it was just clearly, there was so many scratches on it. Like, it clearly has been run through so many times. But for me, that honestly, that didn't bother me. Like, I got my eyes adjusted to the sepia real quick. You could still make out other colors, some blues, some reds. Skin tones weren't bad. It was just, it was watching a movie that.
The VHS copy of a VHS copy.
No, because
from cable that got stepped on.
No, not at all. I mean, because everything was sharp. Like it was in focus the whole time. Like the detail is still amazing. You could still make it out, and yet you still get that nice like little crunchy vibe of, you know, an old film print running through it. It really is like seeing something age like fine wine. Like, I mean, you know, it's. There were people like at the end that were like walking out going like, yeah, it was my first time seeing it, and you know what? I really dug that sepia. I'm not going to go that far, but. This kind of goes back to the film versus digital thing, and it's like, you know what, I realize, like, and this is kind of why I still use, like, multiple formats, and I don't like seeing things on Blu-ray perfect all the time, even though it's great, but really there is just an appeal to seeing things that don't look perfect all the time, and they can be beautiful in their own right. Like, this is an experience of seeing The Dirty Dozen that I know it's not as it's supposed to be intended, but it had its own charm to it. You know, the audio was good, everything was clear, and the image like had scratches and specks of dirt and stuff, but it was still, everything in the frame was clear. So I don't know. I just think it's interesting thinking about that way, that there really is an appeal of not seeing things perfectly, and I think really that speaks more to the power of the movie too. Is that you could still watch this movie and still be drawn into the story, and just for filmmaking in general, it's like, yeah, even if that's really what matters, is you got to have story and characters that you want to keep watching. And even if there are flaws with the presentation of itself that are beyond your own control, that's the main thing that you have control over, is just the power of the, you know, what's in the frame, what you put in there, and what you decide to do. How you see it does not necessarily matter.
Sort of.
But I
mean,
guess,
like I went to the ArcLight a while ago. I think it was like 2 years ago now, and I saw Y2 Mom Tommy Yen with a couple friends, even though I'd already seen it like 2 or 3 times. And like it was like, not, it doesn't sound like it was as bad of a print because the colors were right. There wasn't any sepia tone to it, but there was a fair number of scratches. And based on, you know, not based on, but because the way it's shot with like the camera work and like the nature of the narrator, it kind of lent itself to the film. It didn't hurt it that much. But I do remember being kind of pissy about it, going, especially I think because it was on Netflix at the time. I was like, you motherfuckers, I just spent my $14 or something on a film print that wasn't even that good to begin with. But yeah, maybe that's just me, and maybe it's like you said, like you'd never seen this before, and it just,
yeah,
it
I mean, that is another thing
it.
that I gotta say, is that if I had seen the movie before, and if I was like, yeah, I want to see Dirty Dozen for the first time
on film
with a bunch of people, then you know, I probably might have been pissed.
Yeah.
Like, you know, because seeing I have seen like rewatch movies at the New Beverly before. I rewatched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and for a few dollars more earlier this year, and you know, scratches for those prints were not a problem, but those were IB Technicolor prints, so just color wise, that was the best I had ever seen those movies ever look. And you know, scratches didn't bother me. That's something that I can,
comes with the territory.
yeah, it's something I'm used to. And it just shows the age of the movie in a nice way. You know, like it's never been something that bothers me. I know that people are like, yeah, what the fuck is that? But I mean, I don't know, it's nice seeing elements that are beyond like natural things that can happen that are kind of just beyond your control. It is like, you know, we talked about this like before. It does feel organic, like a living, breathing thing. And, digital's great, but it's sometimes seeing things too perfect don't really have a soul to it. And honestly, I recommend this movie. I think they do it every year because I swear I saw it last year on the November calendar. But that is the best place that you can see it. If you can see it with a crowd, like just Dirty Dozen in 35 at the New Beverly, that's how I recommend going because it's so much fun. Like I know I would not have the same experience at home